Yeah, Stephen, another big story that we hear a lot about is 5G because it's a very transformational technology and end users are really starting to adopt it. But that doesn't mean that it's a slam dunk that without its challenges. We did see a couple of big stories this year around 5G that could impact the way that it's being adopted. And I think the biggest one that we kind of saw going back and forth was the use of 5G's C band around airports. I mean, we had reports from the US FAA that it could potentially cause problems with older altimeters. They brought this up at the 11th hour to try to block the implementation of these frequencies. AT&T and Verizon decided to graciously back off and say, okay, well, we'll do a little bit of investigation, but you also have to do some on your side. And that happened, a little bit earlier this year, back in January. Well, by the time we got all the way down to October, the FAA was like, oh, cool, that worked. Let's make it permanent because we don't ever want to have to do any extra work. And so, the carriers were like, but we were counting on having all of this available frequency for our use, and now you're telling us we can't use it. And the FCC has just kind of basically shrugged their shoulders and said, hey, we don't know what to do here. And that comes on the heels of the fact that if you look back in April, Broadcom released some of the very first Wi-Fi 7 chipsets. And you're probably wondering, well, what does Wi-Fi 7 have to do with 5G? Well, if you've heard any of the conversation that's been going on between Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and 5G, you know that people kind of have them set up like the Hatfields and the McCoys, the Coke and Pepsi of the wireless communications industry. And they think you have to pick between one or the other. Well, now that we have Wi-Fi 7 coming out, hot on the heels of the ratification of Wi-Fi 6E, people are starting to ask, well, should I hold off? Should I wait for 6G? There's so many things that are up in the air right now. We can't even get the regulatory bodies to agree on how it should be handled. And unfortunately, I think that's going to drive people to wait when they shouldn't, and we're going to be forced to keep older technologies around. There was even a story earlier this year about AT&T shutting off their 3G network finally. And, who knows how long LTE is going to have to be around if we can't get Wi-Fi 6E and 7 and 5G to play nicely with each other.